Serial and parallel ports. Serial ports, also called COM ports or RS-232, were standard from the 1960s through the early 2000s. They transmitted data 1 bit at a time and were commonly used for mice, modems, and printers. The DB9 connector with 9 pins was the most common variant. Parallel ports, or LPT ports, used a DB25 connector with 25 pins. They transmitted multiple bits simultaneously, making them faster than serial ports for printers. The thick cable and massive connector made them cumbersome. Both serial and parallel ports were phased out by USB in the early 2000s. PS2 ports were introduced by IBM in 1987 for keyboards and mice. The keyboard port was purple, and the mouse port was green. These 6-pin mini DIN connectors were smaller than previous keyboard connectors. PS2 had lower latency than early USB, which made them preferred by some gamers. They supported N-key rollover, allowing multiple simultaneous key presses. Most motherboards dropped PS2 ports by the mid-2000s, though some gaming boards still include them. VGA, video graphics. Array VGA was introduced in 1987 and became the standard analog video connection for decades. The distinctive blue DB15 connector with 15 pins carried separate red, green, and blue analog signals. VGA supported resolutions up to 1920 by 1200, though higher resolutions resulted in image quality degradation. The analog signal was susceptible to interference and degradation over long cables. VGA remained common until the mid-2000s, despite digital alternatives. Many projectors still include VGA today. DVI, Digital Visual Interface. DVI launched in 1999 as the first widespread digital video connection. Multiple variants existed. DVI-D carried only digital signals. DVI-A carried only analog signals, and DVI-I carried both. The single-link version supported 1920 by 1200 at 60 Hz, while dual-link supported 2560 by 1600. The large connector, with up to 29 pins, was bulky and awkward. DVI-D became standard on monitors and graphics cards throughout the 2000s. It provided noticeably sharper images than VGA. DVI started declining around 2010 as HDMI and DisplayPort gained traction. HDMI, High Definition Multimedia Interface. HDMI launched in 2002, designed primarily for consumer electronics. It carries both video and audio through a single cable, unlike DVI, which required separate audio cables. Multiple versions exist. HDMI 1.4 added 4K support at 30 Hz and Ethernet capabilities. HDMI 2.0 in 2013 enabled 4K at 60 Hz. HDMI 2.1 in 2017 supports 4K at 120 Hz and 8K at 60 Hz, plus variable refresh rate for gaming. The standard Type A connector is compact and easy to use. Mini HDMI and micro HDMI exist for smaller devices. HDMI remains the standard connection for TVs, monitors, and gaming consoles. It includes HDCP copy protection, which prevents recording protected content. DisplayPort launched in 2006 as an open standard developed by Visa. It was designed specifically for computers rather than consumer electronics. DisplayPort carries video, audio, and USB data. DisplayPort 1.2 enabled 4K at 60 Hz or multiple 1080p displays through daisy chaining. DisplayPort 1.4 added 8K support and HDR. DisplayPort 2.0 in 2019 supports up to 16K resolution and significantly higher bandwidth than HDMI. The connector has a locking mechanism to prevent accidental disconnection. Mini DisplayPort was common on Apple devices and some laptops. DisplayPort can adapt to HDMI through passive adapters. It became standard on graphics cards and high-end monitors, favored for gaming due to support for adaptive sync technologies like FreeSync and G-Sync. USB, Universal Serial Bus USB, was introduced in 1996 to replace multiple legacy ports with a single standard. USB 1.0 and 1.1 transferred data at 12 megabits per second, suitable for keyboards and mice, but slow for storage devices. USB 2.0 in 2000 increased speeds to 480 megabits per second, making external storage practical. The Type A connector with the rectangular shape became ubiquitous. Type B connectors with the square shape were used on printers and other peripherals. Mini USB and micro USB appeared on smaller devices like cameras and phones. USB 3.0 and 3.1 USB 3.0 launched in 2008 with speeds up to 5 gigabits per second, 10 times faster than USB 2.0. The blue connector interior indicated USB 3.0 capability. It maintained backward compatibility with USB 2.0. USB 3.1 Gen 1 was just rebranded USB 3.0. USB 3.1 Gen 2 doubled speeds to 10 gigabits per second. The confusing naming scheme frustrated consumers. USB 3.2 further complicated things by adding Gen 2x2 at 20 gigabits per second while renaming previous versions. USB-C, officially USB Type-C, introduced a new reversible connector in 2014. The small oval connector works in either orientation, eliminating the frustration of trying multiple times to plug in a cable. USB-C is just the connector shape. It can support USB 2.0, USB 3.0, USB 3.1, USB 3.2, USB 4, Thunderbolt 3, Thunderbolt 4, DisplayPort, HDMI, and power delivery up to 240 watts. This flexibility creates confusion since not all USB-C cables and ports support the same features. A USB-C port might support only USB 2.0 speeds or full Thunderbolt 4 functionality. Always check specifications. USB-C is becoming universal, replacing proprietary charging ports on phones and laptops. Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt was developed by Intel and Apple, first appearing on MacBooks in 2011. Thunderbolt 1 and 2 used the mini DisplayPort connector and achieved speeds of 10 gigabits per second and 20 gigabits per second, respectively. Thunderbolt 3 in 2015 switched to the USB-C connector and achieved 40 gigabits per second. It supports dual 4K displays or one 5K display, external GPUs, and charging. The lightning bolt symbol indicates Thunderbolt capability. Thunderbolt 4 in 2020 maintained 40 gigabits per second but increased minimum requirements. It mandates support for two 4K displays, PCIe speeds of 32 gigabits per second, and waking computers from sleep by touching the keyboard. Thunderbolt 4 cables must support 100-watt charging. Thunderbolt ports are typically found on premium laptops and high-end peripherals. Ethernet, RJ45. Ethernet ports use the RJ45 connector with 8 pins. They provide wired network connections with lower latency and more stability than Wi-Fi. Cat5 cables supported 100 megabits per second. Cat5e improved to 1 gigabit per second at 100 meters. Cat6 maintained 1 gigabit per second, but with better shielding and supports 10 gigabits per second at shorter distances. Cat6a supports 10 gigabits per second at full 100-meter distances. Cat7 and Cat8 push to 40 gigabits per second and 100 gigabits per second for specialized applications. LED indicators on the port show connection status and activity. Ethernet remains essential for gaming, servers, and situations requiring reliable connections. Most laptops are dropping Ethernet ports for thinness, requiring USB-C adapters. Audio jacks. The 3.5mm audio jack, also called TRS, or headphone jack, has been standard since the 1960s. TRS stands for tip ring sleeve, describing the three conductors. It supports stereo audio output. TRRS jacks, with 4 conductors, support both audio output and microphone input. Common on smartphones and gaming headsets. Color coding on PC audio ports includes green for line out, pink for microphone, blue for line in, orange for subwoofer, black for rear speakers, and gray for side speakers in surround sound setups. The 6.35mm jack is larger and used on professional audio equipment. Optical audio ports, called TOSLINK, transmit digital audio through fiber optic cables and are found on sound cards and home theater systems.